Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're building a super sleek and modern dashboard card that's perfect for showcasing stats. Check this out. The design features a smooth gradient background that gives it a polished, clean look, with a nice floating effect thanks to some subtle shadows and rounded corners. And when you hover over the card, it lifts slightly and the shadow deepens, adding that interactive feel. The title section is eye-catching, with a glowing animated icon inside a circular button that pulses. It really draws your attention. Right next to it, we've got a bold sales title and a 20% progress indicator, all styled for maximum impact. Speaking of impact, the number 39,500 is huge, bold, and sits above a progress bar that animates smoothly from 0 to 76%, and the green gradient just makes it pop. It's all designed to be fully responsive, so it looks perfect no matter what device you're on. Now, if you're ready to create this design from scratch, let's dive into the tutorial and break it all down, step by step. Grab your code editor, and let's get started. We're going to start by understanding the structure of the HTML code. We begin with the body element. Inside the body, we have a div with the class name card. This div represents a container that will hold all the content related to this section, like the title and data. Inside the card div, we have another div with the class name title. This is where we will display the title and percentage. The span inside the title div holds an SVG graphic. This is used to display a small icon. The SVG is a vector graphic, meaning it scales nicely without losing quality. This particular icon is part of the title section and represents a visual element that complements the text. The SVG is 20 pixels in both width and height, and it's positioned inside the span using absolute positioning. It has a specific path that defines its shape. Next to the SVG, we have a P element with the class title text. This P tag contains the word sales, which will be the main title of the card. It's styled to stand out with a larger font size and bold weight. Then we see another P element with the class percent. This P holds the percentage, in this case 20%. This is also a key part of the title section and indicates some metric related to sales. The percentage is displayed right next to the title, and there's another SVG icon beside it, adding a visual cue to the percentage. In the data section, we have another P element that displays a number, 39,500. This could represent a sales figure, and it's styled to be large and bold so that it grabs attention. Finally, we have another div with the class name range. This div will be used to represent some kind of progress bar, giving a visual representation of data. Inside the range div, we have another div with the class fill. This inner div will be animated to show progress within the range bar. That's the breakdown of the HTML structure. We have the card container, title section with its icon and text, and the data section, which includes the numerical value and progress bar. Now let's move on to the CSS and see how we can style our HTML elements. We start with the body element. First, we set the height to 100 VH, which makes the body take up the full height of the viewport. We also use display flex to apply a flex box layout, and justify content, center to center the content horizontally. Align items, center is used to center the content vertically as well. The background color of the body is set to 0E0E0E, which gives us a dark background. Next, we look at the card class. This is the container holding the content inside. We add padding, 1.5 rem to give some space around the content. The background of the card is a linear gradient that goes from F white at the top to F9F9F9, light gray at the bottom. This gradient adds a subtle visual effect. We also apply a box shadow of 0.8px 20px RGBA 00.08 to give the card a soft shadow for a lifted effect. The max width is set to 340 pixels, ensuring the card doesn't get too wide. The border radius is set to 28 pixels, which gives the card rounded corners, making it look smoother. We also specify the font family, which is a list of system fonts like Apple-System, Blink Max System Font, and SF Pro Text. This ensures the text looks consistent across different devices. We use transform, translate YX to slightly shift the card down, and opacity, 0 makes it invisible initially. Then we add an animation called card fade up that will make the card fade in and move up when it loads. On hover, we apply styles to the card. Transform, Translate Y Nidus 6px moves the card slightly up, and Box Shadow 0TPX 32px RGBA 0000.12 makes the shadow more prominent for a hover effect. The transition property ensures that the transform and box shadow changes happen smoothly over 0.45 seconds. Now let's move to the title class. This is where the title of the card and the percentage are styled. We use Display Flex to align the elements horizontally and align items center to vertically center the content. The span inside the title has several styles applied. We use Position, relative to position the SVG icon inside it, and padding 0.6 rem to add some space around the icon. The background of the span is another linear gradient, this time going from 34D399, a light green, to number 10B981, a darker green. We also set a width and height of 1.6 rem and border radius 50% to make the span a circle. The box shadow 0, 3px, 8px, RGBA 16, 185, 129.35 adds a subtle shadow around the span, and there's an animation called Pulse that makes the span gently grow and shrink, creating a pulsing effect. Inside the span, the SVG icon is centered using Position Absolute, with top 50% and left 50%. We use Transform Translate Nisha 50-50% to perfectly center it in the middle of the span. The color of the SVG icon is set to FFFFFF, white, and its height is set to 1 rem. The title text class is applied to the sales text. We give it a margin left 0.75 rem to create some space between the icon and the text. The text color is number 1C1C1E, a dark gray, and the font size is set to 19 with a font weight of 600 to make it bold. We also use letter spacing, MIGA 0.02 EM, to slightly reduce the space between letters. The percent class is used to style the percentage text. We add a margin left 0.5 rem to space it from the title text, and set the text color to Haber 0A7C36, which is a green color. The font weight is 600, making it bold, and the font size is 15px. This is displayed using Display Flex, so the percentage and the SVG icon are aligned horizontally. Now, let's take a look at the data class. This class is used to style the section that contains the numerical value, 39,500, and the progress bar. We use Display Flex and Flex Direction column to stack the elements vertically. The Justify Content, Flex Start aligns the content to the top of the container. Inside the data div, we have the P element that displays the number 39,500. This P tag has several important styles applied to it. We use margin top 1.25 rem and margin bottom 1.25 rem to add some space above and below the number. The color is set to number 111827, a very dark gray, making the number easy to read. The font size is set to 2.4 rem, which is a large size to make the number stand out. The line height is set to 2.7 rem, ensuring there's enough space between the lines if the number wraps onto 2 lines. The font weight is 700, which makes the number bold and prominent. The text is aligned to the left with Text Align, left, and the letter spacing, MIGA 0.03 EM, slightly tightens the letter spacing. Initially, this element is set to have opacity, 0, so it will be hidden when the page loads, and we use an animation called Fade In to gradually reveal the number with a smooth transition. The animation takes 0.8 seconds and starts with a slight translation of 6 pixels from below. Next, let's look at the range div. This is the container for the progress bar. The position, relative property, is used here, so the inner fill div can be positioned absolutely within it. The background color is set to EE5E5EA, which is a light gray color, and the width is set to 100% so that it spans the entire width of the container. The height is 0.55 rem, making it a thin bar, and we apply border radius, 99999px, to give the range a fully rounded shape. The overflow, hidden, ensures that the inner fill doesn't spill out of the rounded corners. Inside the range div, we have the fill div, which represents the actual progress inside the bar. The position, absolute property, places it relative to the range container. Initially, the width is set to 0%, meaning no progress is shown at the start. The height is set to 100%, so it fills the entire height of the range bar. We apply the same border radius, inherit, to make sure the fill maintains the rounded corners of the parent container. The box shadow, inset 0, 1px, 2pa, 000, 0.15 gives the fill a subtle shadow to make it appear inset, adding depth. The background of the fill div is a linear gradient that goes from 34D399, a light green, to number 10B981, a darker green. This gradient visually indicates the progress with 2 different shades of green. We also add 2 animations to the fill div. The first animation is called fill bar, which animates the width from 0% to 76% over 1.6 seconds to represent progress. The second animation, pulse fill, is set to run infinitely, making the fill pulse slightly brighter at certain intervals to add a dynamic effect. This happens with filter, brightness that adjusts from 1 to 1.2 brightness every 50% of the animation cycle. Now let's move on to the animations and keyframes in the CSS. We've already seen some of the animations applied to elements like the card, number, and progress bar. Let's break them down in detail. Card animation. Card fade up. This animation is applied to the card when the page loads. It makes the card appear with a smooth upward movement. Here's how the animation works. The animation starts from transform, translate y 2020px, which initially places the card 20 pixels lower than its final position. The opacity starts at 0, making the card invisible. As the animation runs, it transitions to transform, translate 0, bringing the card back to its original position. The opacity fades to 1, making the card visible. The cubic Bezier 0.251.51 timing function makes the animation smooth and natural. This animation runs for 0.8 seconds and is set to forwards, meaning the final styles, the card in place with full opacity, will persist after the animation ends. Number fade-in animation, fade-in. This animation is applied to the P element displaying the number, 39,500, inside the data section. Here's how it works. It starts with opacity 0, making the number, at 100%, it returns to the original size. The box shadow changes from 0, 3 pixels, 8 pixels, RGBA 16, 185, 129.35, to 0, 6 pixels, 14 pixels, RGBA 16, 185, 129.45 at 50%, making the shadow more prominent during the pulse. So finally, we can see the result of our HTML and CSS codes, a nice card which shows our sales. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Have fun, and see you in the next amazing video.